Hey, Pretty Girl Club. I want to tell a story time about when I was in my early 20s. This was back in my HBCU days. By the way, I am using a different mic today, so if the sound is a little bit different, I'm sorry. This is just me testing it out. But one of the narratives I've noticed is that a lot of unambiguous women will say things like, oh, we don't get opportunities or we don't have as much visibility as like light skinned women. And it actually reminded me of a time when I was in college, and back when I was in college, there were a lot of girls that were into the local modeling scene. And so when I say modeling scene, I'm talking about runway shows, pageants, all that stuff. So anyway, they had this runway casting for like a very big show, and they were putting up flyers all over the university and stuff, like wanting girls to try out because it was a black fashion show ran by an unambiguous black woman and an unambiguous black gay guy. And so I remember showing up to the tryouts. There were about 500 girls there at the tryouts, and about 350 of them were light skinned women or mixed race or completely non black. And I remember thinking, wow, this is a black fashion show, and the unambiguous girls did not even pop out today. Like there were only a few of them. And I remember when they did the casting for the fashion show, there happened to be more light skinned women than like darker skinned women. And I remember there was a rumor going around campus that the fashion thing was being colorist and that they only chose tall, skinny, light skinned girls to be in the show, or that they chose mostly tall, skinny, light skinned girls. And as a person that was there during the tryouts, there were way more light skinned or non black girls at the tryouts versus dark skinned black women. And so the way that they chose the people based on the casting, it was based on like dress size, like typical modeling standards. Like if you're tall and if you can fit the sample sizes and stuff like that. So that's really what it was based on. So any unambiguous women that didn't make it into that modeling thing, it was not based on their skin tone. It was really based on their size, not to mention the fact that a lot of them did not show up. And also, when I was doing that modeling thing at the time, you could not wear makeup, you could not wear weaves and wigs. You couldn't wear that because they needed to see what you looked like naturally so that for like the hairstyling and stuff, they can basically figure out like, okay, what kinds of hairstyles can we do or what type of look does she have? Because the way that they do these fashion shows is they will have multiple designers. And so one designer might want more of an edgy look, another designer might want more of a sultry look or something like that. So that's why they didn't allow us to wear makeup and hair extensions and stuff. And if you did come to the tryouts with that on, they would have you wash it off. Because I remember I went to one and I was wearing makeup, just like regular everyday makeup. And they were like, oh, are you wearing foundation and stuff? Like, can you use this makeup wipe and wipe off your makeup right now? Because we want to see what you guys look like naturally. I remember for some of the fashion show tryouts, you just had to wear like just some jeans or, just wear all black. You couldn't wear like, I don't know, like corsets and stuff like that. And so I actually believe that a part of the reason some of the unambiguous women didn't show up to that particular tryout was because of the rule about not being able to wear weaves and wigs and stuff, like having to wear natural hair. And then I also think it could have been because a lot of those girls didn't believe in themselves. And it reminded me of what Cardi B said about how she feels like she is a better marketer than a lot of the dark skinned black rappers who are more talented than her. And that's kind of what I thought as well, because I felt like there are so many dark skinned black women on my college campus or around me who could easily be runway models. They have the body type or whatever, but for whatever reason, they just either didn't show up to the audition or they didn't believe in themselves, and so they didn't get the opportunity. And now there's a huge rumor going around the school that like nobody wanted to cast them and that people are colorist. Meanwhile, the directors or the people who were in charge, they were unambiguous people, an unambiguous woman, an unambiguous man, and also the designers were black designers. So it's not like, oh, we're black designers, but we don't want to cast black people. That's not what it was at all. And so the reason that I sometimes speak against the victim narrative is because I really do feel like people use their skin tone as a handicap. And I also think that some people don't try out for certain opportunities because they don't even believe in themselves. And so if you grew up your whole life being told that like you're at the bottom or nobody's going to like you because of your skin, no one's going to like you because of your hair, then obviously you're not going to have the same level of confidence to try out in a room full of 500 light skinned women because you will feel like you can't compete. You'll feel like you can't get the role or whatever, or like they're not going to like you. And so I really think that that is what a lot of it is. I've noticed that people like to hide behind colorism, texturism, and featureism, but it's like when it came to that particular modeling thing, I don't think it was colorism. I think it was the natural hair rule, the no makeup rule, and then also the fact that you just had to come in and, compete with like 500 girls, and that could be intimidating to some people. And I've noticed that one thing that holds a lot of women back is not being willing to admit their insecurities and not being willing to admit their flaws. This is a huge issue that I see in the Black community, not just with women, but also with the men as well. There is a severe lack of vulnerability. And if you're not able to be vulnerable and honest, even with yourself, then you're definitely not going to be able to succeed in the real world. And I've also noticed a habit where a lot of people who have inferiority complexes, they magnify criticism. So if you criticize them, they get super like butthurt about it. They want to go off YouTube. They no longer want to talk about light skinned women on YouTube anymore. They no longer want to make the content because they want to have a voice, but then they don't want to have a conversation though, and they can't handle it if channels that are 10 times smaller than them, like my channel in comparison to Chrissy's channel, they can't handle it if they have some sort of competitor because they feel deep down inside like they can't compete, or they feel like they don't have a place, or once again, they feel like they're being replaced by others. But one thing I noticed was a lot of the women, they were making this talking point that like people were being colorist and stuff, and that only the light skinned girls got to be seen as pretty. And I was too scared at the time to speak up and be like, no, actually, not a lot of dark skinned Black women showed up to the audition. But if you guys follow my channel, you will hear me talk about how showing up for yourself is the most important. And also, I am not delusional enough to think that I'm always going to have the spotlight or to think that there's no room for anybody else, because I've also noticed that women who have this scarcity mindset, they don't want to allow you to shine as a dark-skinned mixed woman or as a light-skinned Black woman. They don't want you to shine because they want all the spotlight to themselves. They feel threatened by any other woman being called beautiful or, having something going for herself. And that comes from a scarcity mindset. They feel like there's not enough room at the table. One of my social climbing strategies that I use here on this YouTube channel is I will go out of my way to promote other channels that are similar to mine. By the way, be sure to follow Exotical Union, Multiracial Movement, Golden Goddess, All Mixed Up MGM, Exotical Dollhouse, Pretty In Between, Pretty Girl Anonymous. I'm thinking of all the other YouTube channels that are in this niche, but part of why I promote other YouTube channels that are similar to mine is because even if I'm not here, somebody else within my community is still representing me. So I know how to have this mindset where it's like we can have a shared collective pretty privilege, we can have a shared collective version of success. And I really think it's important for women to show up for themselves, because when I think of those dark-skinned women at that audition, they didn't show up for themselves. They didn't show up with the mindset of wanting to rep for the dark-skinned community. They didn't care. Like there were way less of them versus the light-skinned women or the non-Black women. And some people are going to say, oh, it's because you guys had an inferiority complex. You guys thought you were going to benefit from colorism. But it's like, we knew that the casting director was a dark-skinned, unambiguous Black woman. So who do you think she'd be more likely to pick? Who do you think that the dark-skinned, unambiguous Black woman is more likely to pick for a Black fashion show that she is in charge of? She's probably going to pick women who look more like herself. And so the reason why a lot of women miss out on opportunities is because they do not apply themselves. They don't show up for themselves. They don't want to market themselves. They want to beg others to market them. And I say this all the time, who better to represent you than you? Stop begging others to represent you. The mistake that those dark skinned women made when I was in college was they were hoping that because the owner of the fashion show was an unambiguous black woman, that the fashion show was supposed to have more unambiguous women. But that fashion show owner, she had no choice but to cast a lot of light skinned or mixed or non black women because that's who the majority of the people were that were auditioning. She didn't have as much to pick from when it came to the darker skinned unambiguous women. One thing that I have noticed when it comes to social climbing is that people respect pioneers. So even if you are no longer the head honcho in your field, people will respect you for pioneering something new. So when you think about this exotical movement, whether it's dark-skinned exoticals, multi-generationally mixed women, when you think about us all creating our YouTube channels, this YouTube niche is bigger than just us. This is a movement that we are starting. We are pioneering a whole new age on YouTube. So by the way, welcome to the second wave of women's empowerment channels. This wave will be better than the first wave because we are getting rid of the victim narrative, even the unambiguous channels that are inspired by this channel and the unambiguous women who are inspired by this niche, even those women are divorcing themselves from this woe is me victim narrative. And so people will always respect you if you show up for yourself. Yes, they might criticize. Yes, people might hate on you. Yes, some of the OGs might try to come against you. They might try to get your channel flagged down or taken down. But as long as you keep on persevering, then you have a higher chance of success. So it's like for the light-skinned women who all showed up to the audition, first of all, I would kind of argue that they probably had more competition, right? Because there were more girls showing up. But it's like, I'm not surprised, though, that light-skinned women got picked or that when it came down to the numbers, there just happened to be more light-skinned women available. It's because more light-skinned women took the risk. And I've noticed that women who have inferiority complexes, they are afraid to take risks. They're afraid to be seen as ugly or to be like humiliated in front of others. But you can't be in a position of leadership if you are afraid of people talking shit about you or if you're afraid of people like criticizing you. You guys know that I welcome criticism. You may not be able to criticize here on my channel in my comment section, but if someone criticizes from their YouTube channel, I love when they do that because not only does it convert some of their subscribers into mine, but it also helps me to have even more ammo. It helps me to strengthen my talking points. You guys know that I talk so much on this channel about dark femininity and how sometimes you can actually utilize people's criticisms to make yourself better. So if somebody says, oh, you can't really dance like that, oh, your outfit's messed up, your foundation doesn't match, the way that I think of it is, wow, thank you for telling me because now I'm going to look even prettier. Now I'm going to be even more talented. Now I'm going to be an even better content creator because I've got people who are actually holding me to a higher standard without even realizing it. And also for the people who say you only got to where you are because of light skin privilege, it's like, okay, you guys use your pretty privilege, you use white privilege, you use wealth privilege, proximity privilege, you guys use your family connections, you utilize whatever privileges you have, but now suddenly you're mad because I am utilizing light skin privilege, or suddenly you're mad because I have a YouTube channel talking about pretty privilege. And it's like the same people that shame you for using your privilege, they are using their privileges behind closed doors. But here on this YouTube channel, I'm honest and authentic enough to talk about it. I go way more into depth than a lot of other Black women empowerment channels that you've heard in the past. A lot of them barely even scratch the surface of the things that they're talking about, and they end up just kind of talking in circles about how their life sucks, which does not actually empower people because this channel, like for me, I study the brain and stuff like that. So if you know how the brain works, if you keep on creating neural pathways that are negative, like if you keep on having these ruminating thoughts and you keep thinking about all the racism, all the colorism, texturism, and featureism, you are actually creating deeper neural pathways in your brain. You're training your brain to notice those things more often. You're training your brain to notice more negative things because your brain is kind of like a computer. Your brain is created to predict things. So a lot of people, they say, oh, well, it's bad. You shouldn't stereotype. You shouldn't judge others. But it's like your brain's judgment center was actually created so that it can protect you. So if you're in your house and it's 2 a.m. and a guy comes in with a ski mask on, your brain is judging that person in order to protect you. Your brain has different associations that it has created because of your past experiences in order to protect you from potential harm. And so you can actually control the way that you wire your brain. And so you can actually control the way that you think. You may not be able to control how other people behave, but you can kind of train your mind to have more confidence, to put yourself on the pedestal. I have no problem talking about my pedestal and how I'm going to stay on my pedestal. No one's taking my pedestal away from me. We now have thousands of unambiguous women watching our channel. They're converting over from channels like Chrissy's. They're converting over from other Black empowerment channels because they have to watch us. They have to learn from us. They have to learn from our confidence and self-esteem because they've realized that a lot of the victim, woe is me narratives on those other channels are not helpful to them. But what do you ladies think? Do you feel like other people allow victim mentalities to hold them back? Let me know in the comment section and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.